Hello, this is Sheshachalam from Astrogat Mysore. So today let us understand the results of Saturn when it is placed in the zenith, that is the 10th house. Why I simply started with the zenith is because it's just over our head. The 10th house, that is why it is called as the Karmasthana. The Karmasthana which controls our actions, our deeds on this earth for this particular lifetime. And this can be studied from the 10th house and the planets which are affecting the 10th house and the planets which are placed in the 10th house, and particularly planets which are placed in the 10th house will assume a stronger role, though there is a very strong role of the 10th lord, and that is a dispositor of the 10th house, and where it is sitting is very important, but still the placement of Saturn in the 10th house gives it a very strong control over the 10th house. And the 10th house, as I said, is Karmasthana. So I usually call this in different words and terminology so that it will be easy for us to understand what actually Saturn is doing there. Like as I made some points here, I I have written down some points. Let me read it out directly. The teacher of patience sitting on the head or overseeing our day to day activities or our activities day in and day out. So 24 bar 7, this planet will continuously be over our head, trying to rectify, trying to put experience into us, to tell us that have patience and have perseverance, you will be able to achieve. So this is an embodiment of patience, endurance, tough life, and usually we call this in all words karmic life, a life with lot of karmic influence when Saturn is in the 10th house and strongly placed. So, a rich placement of Saturn in the 10th house is good for detachment through karmic value systems. So, a person can detach from the karmic, getting stuck to the karmic influences, what we call as the karmic vasana, karma vasana. So he gets detached from that karmic influences by not getting attached to the results of his actions. So that is what is the shloka of Bhagavad Gita, which tells that we are only supposed to perform our actions in its real sense, not for appreciation, not for satisfaction of ego, or not for the result, the outcome. That is what is that karmanyavadikarasi. So, ma phaleshu kadachana. So that particular paragraph or that particular statement of Bhagavad Gita has taken a huge importance in our day to day life. So we keep on reminding ourselves, how much ever we remind, this society has got attached to the materialistic values. So everybody gets attached because the whole society runs, you cannot leave out and turn that side. It's some people do that, and those people are those retro Saturns who are having 10th house retro Saturns, who can achieve a path which is not among the herd. The herd influence. If 10 are running on one direction, the 11th also will think that I should also run there because the majority is going there. The retro Saturn in the 10th house will clearly tell this is not the path for me, and my path I will carve it out myself. So a retro Saturn is a very strong Saturn in the 10th house, provided it is not having a malefic influence like Rahu, Mars, Mercury, Moon. No malefic influence. So that's what I have written next. If a retro or a rebellious, reformative Saturn, because there are different things. It can become rebellious when it is placed with some planet. It can become reformative when it is placed with a thinker like Venus or Jupiter. It can become rebellious when it is placed with Mercury or Mars. It can become weak when it is placed with a weak Mercury or weak Moon. So many things happen to a planet when it is in combination with other planets. So uh, when if a retro or rebellious or reformative Saturn is sitting in the 10th house, then then the person, the native, tries to change the society through his leadership, through his philosophies, through his theories. Think the other way around, or through force. That is because he becomes a fanatic when it is having a malefic influence, and it is a strong malefic. Then that person will think that he can change the society by force. So Saturn is not a simple planet to reckon. So be very sure when you are giving a prediction of this sort. So as I said, it's a teacher which works 24 bar 7 with a sharp intellect, active at night, because Saturn is active at night. It's active at the dark hours, in the dark hours. So when Saturn is weak in the 10th, but placement wise it is strong in the 10th, because it is the Karaka for the karma. Why is it weak in the 10th? Because it is the zenith. That is the place where Sun becomes very strong, and Saturn usually gets its strength in the fourth house. But it will not be able to influence the karma from the fourth house as it can influence it in the 10th. So never quit. Stubborn and adamant behavior also is one of the highlights of Saturn when it is placed in the 10th house, because these people are very, very, very strong with regard to their faith, their belief, their resolve, and their discretionary power is very strong. So the judgmental power, so they can become very good judges. So, as we know from the 10th house, the Saturn aspects the 3rd, the 7th, and the 10th from its placement. So, from the 10th, the 3rd house is 10, 11, 12th. The 12th house, that is the house of involvement with materialistic indulgences and influence. So, the five senses, as I say, the bed, pleasure, that, this, many other things. So, foreign travel. So, Saturn puts a check on those things, it puts a hold on it. And fourth house is Sukhasthana. This is what I keep telling. If the 10th has a heavyweight planet, it will make you work, continuously work. You will be a workaholic by choice. You will love to do it. The fourth house is leisure, enjoyment, taking time out, you know, having a nice time, lethargy, carelessness, carefreeness, all these things come in the fourth house. Saturn is dead against all this when it is sitting in the 10th house. It makes a person work continuously and see that he gets salvation through karma. What if it is malefically strong? A weak Saturn is a different issue, but what if it is malefically strong? Prejudice, pride, ego, status, hunger for status, for power, for politics, for position in the society, this starts to become a major issue or a major requirement for the person. So he loses the karmic values in this particular position when Saturn gets malefically influenced and it is very strong in the 10th house. This person starts losing the human touch. So the lust, the greed, the jealousy, all these things, become the front face of this particular person. But we need to first analyze how is Saturn placed in the 10th, whether it is malefic and malefically strong, malefic and malefically weak. So if it is weak, then this person will become an introvert. The jealousy will be there, the greed will be there, but it will be an introvert thing. He will not openly come and show these things to anybody. So if it is beneficially posited, let's say it's exalted in the 10th house, it is in its own house in Makara or Kumbha, that is Capricorn or Aquarius in the 10th house. fantastic placement for people to achieve high offices like IAS, IPS in India, administrative offices like the secretariats, like ambassadors, huge offices. So they can become a big, you know, having posts of army officers of a very high cadre, judges. So very individualistic, because the second house, which actually is representing the family and the family values, very clearly gets affected when Saturn is in the 10th. That is because from the second, this is the ninth house, the house of blessing. And from the 10th, that is the fifth house, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2. So it's the Purva Punyasthana. It gets affected. So there is a chance that the person might have to stay in hostels or far away from family at the time of education. So it is not permanent, but it is for the time of education. So these people love to be with nature. So they love being agriculturists, advocates, fearless leaders, sergeants, colonels, and many other posts in the army, reputed as a judge. Now comes the most important factor where people falter. So anyone who keeps seeing their chart and tell that, oh, I have Saturn in the 10th house, I will become an advocate, I can become a judge. Please be careful. Try to understand this. If Saturn is weak, very weak, you need to see the Shat Bala. Shat plus Bala. Shat Bala. Shat means six. Six-fold strength. Six-fold strength is called Shat Bala. So, Shat Bala has to be seen wherein all the other balas will be there, like Ucha Bala, Nicha Bala, Ojo Yugma Rashyam Shabala, Sthana Bala, Kendra Bala, Kranti Bala, Ayanam Shabala, Ayana Bala, what we call. So, all these Bala will be put into one, and it's made to, it's a quantitative measurement of the planetary strength in a person's chart, Shatbala. So if the Shatbala is weak, and also if positionally if Saturn is weakly posited, then the person can just be a menial servant or a labor. He can do a menial work, that is normal work, like a loader, a cleaner, a helper, an attendant, an assistant, who will do it as a routine, repetitive job for a very long time in their life period. People who have 10th house Saturn, I have seen many charts, they have lost their job whenever Saturn gets into the Pratyantara Dasha, Antardasha, or the Mahadasha. They have lost their jobs because of many things, because of their value systems. They don't like what people are telling, they'll leave the job. Or suddenly there is a crisis and the company itself shuts down. So there are many other reasons why a person suddenly loses the job. So if it is weak, these things can happen. So this is not a good position for Saturn to be weak in the 10th house for starting a business. So people keep on asking me, can I do a business? I'm getting that urge to do a business. Please unnecessarily do not go into business until and unless you have a strong Saturn in the 10th house. If there is a weak Saturn in the 10th house, I'm only talking about Saturn in 10th house. I'm not talking about any other planet and why business should not be done. No. So I'm talking about a weak Saturn in the 10th house, a malefic Saturn in the 10th house. Don't go in for business, because there is a chance of a sudden downfall. So, with all this, this is a huge position for Saturn to be, though it has its negatives, because Kendra Sthana, 10th is also a Kendra, natural Kendra it is. So, out of the four Upachaya Sthanas, 3, 6, 10, 11, 10th house is the only Kendra Sthana. 3, 6, 11 are pure Upachaya Sthanas. So, and sixth is the Triksthana, 6, 8, 12. So, 6 is one of the Triksthanas. So, these two positions, Saturn gives some mixed results, and particularly in the 10th house, usually people don't want it to be in the 10th house because they don't want to do that much of hard work. People are enjoying around him, and has to go to office and sit there and do hard work. But I'll tell you one thing, these are the people who are actually holding this society up. These are the people who are running this society for us. So, a strong Saturn in the 10th house, a reformative Saturn in the 10th house, who can actually try to, he will go into each rule book and see what are all the mistakes. He can do the correct editing of the rule book so that it can be applicable directly to the society without any problem, no glitch. So, that is a fantastic Saturn. So, a Saturn in the 10th house gives mixed results, no doubt, but from my perspective, it's a beautiful position. Thank you very much for today's class.